Welcome back, everyone, to episode 5 of The Latest Thread. We have a very special guest today. DeWayne Carron is with us. And we are also going to talk about our favorite marking tools and some removal methods. And so we're going to get started with chatting with DeWayne right away. For those of you who don't know who he is, which would really surprise me, he was our pretty much go-to everything guy on the tour, the Quilting with Confidence tour in 2019. He drove the truck, he helped with setup and takedown, and all kinds of other things that we probably don't even know about behind the scenes. So welcome, DeWayne.
Hi guys, how are you today?
We're really, really happy to have you on our little show.
Thank you.
So do you mind if we pick your brain a little bit and ask you a few questions?
Sure.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into quilting to start with?
I had always been around quilters. My mother is a quilter. My mother-in-law actually owned a quilt shop. My wife is a quilter, so therefore I was at quilt shows all the time. And I would always look at the quilts for a while, but before long at the big shows I would be over messing around with the machines with the dealers, and the machines always intrigued me, so I always enjoyed working with the machine. So
you got sucked in somehow to actually working with
sucked in. So afterwards I had retired from my business, from the business I worked for, and we decided to start a long arm quilting business. And after reviewing all the machines, we finally ended up with the obvious choice of working with a Gamal. So we bought a new Statler and we started our business with that. So that started all of this pretty much.
So then what led you to work with Gamal for the tour? How did that happen?
Well, we live in Missouri and Gamal is in Missouri, so I was always around Gamal quite a bit, you know, and I would be at these events and these trainings, and I had started doing little parts of local training on Creative Studio and with the Statler. And the more I had been around them, you know, the more I liked the company. So I was at an event one day and I asked, the owner of the company was sitting off to the side, and I told her I really appreciated, you know, everything that the company had done, and if they ever needed an apprentice for their Quilting with Confidence tour, I would be available. And she asked me if I could drive a truck. And I said, well, yes, I can actually. And about 2 weeks later, I was in the truck. I was hired and in the truck and on our way to North Dakota. So it was awesome. It was a strange turn of events.
Being away from home for a long periods of time at a time, right?
Yeah, long periods at a time. So my wife will fly out every once in a while and hop on with us. So it's a good experience. It works out well.
Yeah, it was always nice when we got to see Jan. Yeah. So what were some of your favorite moments from the 2019 tour?
Actually, both of them would be in Canada, I would say. The first experience was the Canadian Rockies, which was just absolutely awesome. I mean, the scope of the Canadian Rockies you just can't even comprehend how big and how vast they are and how pretty they are. Pictures don't do them justice. And then the other one was actually over in Moncton, over in New Brunswick. It's in New Brunswick, right?
Yeah.
And we drove over there and we met Hurricane Dorian coming up the East Coast. And it wasn't so much that about Moncton, but it was the people over there in New Brunswick were just so great to work with, and the students were happy and we lost power and it didn't matter. They were happy to be there. They were going to have a good time, and it was just a really cool event. You know, we worked off a generator and
Yes,
everything that people were just really great.
I think we all can say we have some really great memories from that tour year.
Yeah.
So,
it was really a lot of fun.
did you know you have like a little fan club? No, I shouldn't say little. It's kind of big. You have this following of people who want to know all about where is DeWayne and the Gamal truck today. It phenomenoned into this big thing where there were posts every day about where's the Gamal truck. So tell us a little bit about that, and I think you have some things to share with us too.
Yeah, so I was out in the desert somewhere, and I caught a picture of the truck. It was a real nice picture of the sunrise, and I thought, well, I should take a picture of this and post it, you know, because I don't know, because there's nothing else to do when you're out there in the morning in the truck. So I caught a nice picture of the truck and I posted it just under "Where's the Gamal truck today?" So a few days later, I was in a different landscape, you know, a completely different region, and I posted another picture, and it started to get some attention. So I thought, well, this is fun, you know, if I can catch the truck someplace, you know, and get a nice picture of it, then you know, I'll do that and just post it on Facebook, because it's always good to connect with other people and just, you know, form a relationship with people. So yeah, it pretty much caught on. I'm sure it's not a fan club, but it's fun to do, and it is popular, you know. So I'll share a couple of pictures here with us. Starting off in the morning. Here's one. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you remember where you are in each of these photos?
Yes, this is in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
We caught some snow in this picture right here. We were had just made it over the divide, the continental. No, I guess not. This is in Idaho, I believe.
Yeah. No, it was still Montana, I think. Right at the crossroads.
Was it still in Montana where we made it? We just made it over the divide before a big snowstorm came. Yeah. This one is in Oregon. This one is in Redding, California. There was this little herd of deer that just kind of stuck around all day. This little buck was right here with the truck.
That
was a lot of fun.
That's pretty.
That's my favorite.
This was one of the first ones that I took that I posted. Where's the Gamal truck today? It was a pretty sunrise in Oregon. The second time through Oregon. I'm not sure where this. This is the Sierras in California.
Oh wow.
This was in Arizona. I'm not sure where. Coming back through the mountains in Arizona. That's also in Arizona. And this is where I work today.
Well, that's perfect, because we were just going to ask you, what are you up to now since the tour has been postponed?
Lately I've been working on a new version of Creative Studio and doing some beta testing and rewriting some technical instruction, and also I work in the pattern cloud with redoing tags, testing tags, and editing tags in the pattern cloud. So pretty much it's all computerized work. here. I haven't put shoes on in 3 days. I'm barefoot most of the time.
So, and I was curious, if you were to say something to anyone who is considering attending the Quilting with Confidence tour this coming year, we saw a lot of growth and interest in the tour last year. At the beginning, there were people just kind of testing the waters and waiting to see what other people were going to post about their experience at the tour. And then it just really grew, and towards the end of the year, all of our events just filled up. They sold out. And there was just so much positive feedback on all of the social media groups that people were talking and sharing their experiences. So if you were to share something with someone who was considering attending this coming year, what would that be?
Well, I think it's just the atmosphere, mostly about being around other quilters and sharing information, and that interaction with other quilters is just really a lot of fun. I mean, it really truly is a lot of fun, informational, of course, but also a lot of fun. So I think that's a big thing right there. In Creative Studio for the computerized users, it's an ever fluid thing to where it's constantly evolving. New versions of Creative Studio come out, and there's always training on that. And it's amazing what these machines and that program can do. It's really awesome.
The learning never stops.
The learning never stops. The learning never stops for me either, and I work with it every single day, and I'm constantly learning something new, and amazed at what you can do with these machines is awesome.
I think one of my favorite experiences from the tour last year was, I mean, there were so many, but one of them was also learning from the other educators on the tour. I don't think it matters what skill level you're at or experience you've had as a quilter. There's always something that you can learn and pick up and add to your repertoire. So what about you girls? Did you want to add anything else about last year's tour before we move on?
Yeah, well, it was, I mean, it was like you said, constant learning. And like, you think, you think you're a good educator, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, if I do it a little bit different, or if I just change this up just a tiny bit, it's an amazing class. So, I learned from everybody as well. And I don't know, I like the students, just that energy of those students in the room. It's really a cool thing.
Yeah. I think one thing I noticed a lot was the interaction that they were all getting with each other was awesome to watch.
Mm-hmm.
They would exchange names and numbers because they didn't even know the other ones existed or that they were that close.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, especially when you go into when we went into the rural areas, Casper, Wyoming comes to mind, for instance, very rural. And those women, they were just so excited to be there. They were thanking us for coming because they've never been able to take a class. And like Jody said, they didn't even realize, that they were fairly close to one another, in their state. And, they made contacts that are going to last for some time to come. So overall, whether it's for the students or for us as educators to experience that, was really something. And I personally was glad to be a part of the 2019 tour.
We're all really looking forward to when it starts up again. So.
It's going to be like vacation.
Right?
Yep.
Well, DeWayne, I'm sure you have lots of work to do today, unless you're, barefoot and taking the day off.
Today's the work day.
We want to thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us. I'm sure everybody's going to be excited to see what you're doing now, and just to see your friendly face. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us today. So
all right, you guys have a good day.
Thank you, Dwayne. So we are going to take a really quick break, and then we come back. We are going to talk about some of our favorite marking tools and some techniques for removing. So stay tuned.
Hi, this is Andrew with Gamal. Unexplained thread breaks will drive you crazy, but fortunately there's a common cause that's easy to fix, and that would be a rough spot on a thread guide. So I'm going to show you how to check and see if that's your problem. Typically, it'll be one of the thread guides directly below the take-up lever. Take your thread as if it was dental floss, seesaw back and forth across the surfaces of the guide, and check and see if it cuts your thread. More often than not, the problem will be found on the last thread guide, right about, oh, look at that, it cut my thread. Let's check it again. If you find a rough thread guide, it'll be easy to replace.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in. And now we just want to chat with you guys a little bit about some of our favorite marking tools and some removal. And so I'm going to share my screen because we have all of the photos ready for you. So just give me one sec and I'll share that. There we go. Everybody can see that. And it looks like Ava is up first.
Okay, so the reason why I posted those Crayola washable, ultra clean washable markers is because I do a lot of marking. And some of the marking tools that are intended for quilters, often are pricey. And so someone suggested that, and I don't remember who suggested it, but I tried them and very successful. I mean, you can treat it just like if you were using the quilter's wash away marker. Spritz it, wash it, and I've tried multiples of the different colors, and I've not had an issue with it coming out. But with all other marking tools, you probably should test it before you use it. But inexpensive marking tool. Okay, here is a product called Blue Line Eraser, and as indicated in the name, it takes away the blue wash away markings. And I couldn't find, it also comes when you ordered with a little syringe type container. So you can target a very specific area on the quilt. So you're not drenching the quilt with it, to get your markings out. You can, apply it directly where you need it. And again, you want to be sure that you've tested the fabric for color fastness. But it takes it right out, and in my experience, the blue marks after having used that never come out. Never come back, not out.
I was like, wait, what?
That would be bad.
Totally makes it permanent.
They've never come back. Okay, here is just some very simple household items to remove the chalk markers. The one on the right is just a micro fiber cloth, and I've tried it on different types of chalk markers, and it wipes right off. The one on the left is bug remover for your car, and because it has a rough porous surface, it also is ideal for removing the chalk. So those are just some things that you might have at home, easily remove the chalks. And those are for marking also. And I do consider the marking tools, and they're very inexpensive. You can get them, at a craft supply store. They're, cheap, and look at all the sizes. And the circle one actually comes in a multitude of other sizes. There's also other shapes. I like the hexagons if I'm working on fabric, or if I'm playing around with designs on paper or my dry erase board, then I have all these shapes and sizes in one place. So that's another way to help with your marking. And yet again, you can also get the nested shapes. And again, they come in all different sizes. So you get in one nested shape all of the different sizes for markings. And the one on the left is a tool by Jody Robinson. If you're a fan of straight lines, you can easily mark your straight lines very efficiently.
So this is probably my absolute favorite marking thing, the Pounce Powder. And this is, there are tons of different styles out there. You can use any of them. I like the one that says you have to iron it off because then it stays on the whole time. And a lot of times I'm not necessarily marking a whole stencil. So I have a little Rubbermaid container, and I dump some of that chalk in it, and I use a little sponge brush. It's just to paint, and you can dip it in there if you only want to get like a couple of lines on your stencil instead of pouncing the whole thing.
Clever.
And then this is, I love this thing. It's called a music staff marker. You might remember them from music class or from writing cursive letters. And on this one, kind of what's marked there on the fabric is how I have mine set up. And I mostly use this for all overs because like that, I can just use those chalk lines as a boundary. And then I can throw some, one design in the big part and a different design in the smaller part. And it's inexpensive and they're hard to come by these days. Usually you can find them at a music supply. And then these are probably my two favorite things that I use to get any markings, chalk or chalk pencil or whatever. And the big fluffy one is like a microfiber thing to dry your car. Got that at Walmart. And then Walmart too, because I don't go many other places. But it's just a nail brush. So it's kind of firm, but not too firm. And you can scrub that. It has a little more oomph. And it'll get out most anything very quickly.
Oh, that's me. That's a Chubby Crown, and it's very much like the Pounce Powder, which once you draw it on, you can iron it off. But I use regular chalk a lot, but I use this more for my pre-marking, which I don't do very much of, but I know that it's there until I take it off. So sometimes I'll stick that into my little chalk holder as well.
Do you iron that off, Karen? Or how do you?
It's ironed off. Mm-hmm.
The marks remove with a steam iron, it says on there.
I can't even read that.
It's pretty tiny.
So, oh, and this is my other. Jody actually showed me this pen a while back. That's So Line Style of Rollerball, and it's now my favorite. That's the only thing I want to use. But I don't mark every single line. I mainly mark little tick marks. So I have a water brush, which it's just for watercolor painting. And I don't ever want to spritz a client quilt because you might have red fabric that was not pre-washed. So I'll just take the water brush and remove my tiny little tick marks. So that's actually one of my favorite tools, the water brush. And that's, I mark with any shape I have. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, everybody was sharing the stencils before. If there's something in my house that's the shape I need, I'm using that as a stencil. Okay, I'm done.
So these are the tools that I like. I have the little water reservoir pen too, just from the craft store, and you can get them in a couple of different sizes. The reservoirs are bigger on some. Just like you said, Karen, I like to use them for just putting a little dot in one spot I don't like to try to mark all of my lines out. You know, if you once you get comfortable, you can just make your little reference dots and stitch point to point. I do like the Clover fine tip pens, and the reason I like the fine tip versus the big felt tip pens is the felt tip pens, they're so saturated with chemical, the ink, the marking solution, that if you're not careful and if you leave it in the same spot for too long, it can bleed down into the batting and even to the back of the quilt. And so you spritz it, and the top mark goes away, but then a few hours later it comes back, and it's actually just coming right back out from the inside of the quilt. So getting used to just as minimal as you can get away with for marking is ideal for me. So that's why I like the fine tip one. So the purple one disappears with air, and I live like I'm an hour drive away from the big Rockies here in Canada, so it's dry, and so that will stay on for days, the purple mark. Where you
I got 30 seconds before that line's gone.
Yeah, so depending on how long or how quickly I can quilt something will depend which one I use. And then so the purple and the blue I use for lighter fabrics, but then for a darker fabric I use the Pounce Powder mechanical chalk pencil, and it has the little refills and an eraser on the end. And I find that one works for me for darker fabrics where you can't see the purple and blue as much, and they just come off with a little bit of friction, like even just a little piece of batting in your hand, I can just rub it, or you can use the eraser that it comes with.
I have a little tip. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
if you don't have one of those little
go ahead.
Water things, you know, a little pen. So I don't have one, and I just fill a cup with water and put a Q-tip in there. And you know, if you don't have one, that works good too.
Yeah, for sure. Just a little dab, right? And a couple of years ago, I was wanting to have some different shapes to be able to put on quilts quickly, and I had my husband create 18 stencils for me, and these are just 3 of them. But there's a geometric set. You can see the diamonds and the hexagons there. They're all in half-inch increments. So if I want to do an echo on something, I don't have to do the math. And then there's a set of paisleys and feather shapes for marking out feathers, and curls you can see on the right there. And there's also like filigree and steampunk gears and fun stuff like that. So they're like right beside my machine all the time, and I just grab them quickly to put a little spot in shape. It's kind of fun to take like a hexagon. Ava, you had a hexagon one too there. Just drop a little hexagon or a different shape into a background and then fill around it. That can be really fun and super quick, right? So I think that is it. We hit our last picture. So I will get us back to our main screen here. Are there any other tips about marking that you girls want to share with everyone?
Probably one thing that is important to know is that even though we said these are our favorites or we use them all the time and they come out, you should always test it on your own fabric. I mean, you know, it's always a good idea to test it actually on the fabric that you're going to mark, just to be sure.
Yeah, I have that awful horror story, and you know, it was a water soluble white pen, and the marks did go away, except that when you took a photo with flash photography, you can see every line on the quilt because there was some sort of mica in the pen, so it actually is really reflective. So the entire quilt got painted, and that was tested. But who would think, hey, take a picture with a flash?
You will now, though, right?
Oh, everyone. My little tester shot.
What about the ones that there are marking tools that will come off with heat? But then I've heard that
I used it. You're talking about the friction pen.
That's got to be
like
it.
That. Yeah. And I marked a whole quilt with it, and I wasn't going to iron it off because I wash everything. And it said if you wash it, it'll go away. And when I washed it, it mostly went away, but not all of it. And so then I got the iron, and everywhere that I touched the iron, it took the black mark out, but it also took the color out. So now they have white. It bleached the fabric everywhere I marked and put the heat on it. So I wouldn't personally do that again.
There's a lot of testing with them, and it's different. Like if you don't know how the fabric's been treated, like stay away from them, because if there's starch that's been in the fabric, it totally changes the reaction of the friction pens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That could change the reaction of any of the marking tools.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so. Like the chemicals or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, if you just don't know, it's always a good idea to test. So. And Jody, you mark a lot.
I do mark a lot. Yeah. But they're mostly mine. I don't like someone else's quilt. And if I have to, I use school chalk or a purple marker, because those two things I do know, well, from my experience, will come out. So that is, otherwise I try to figure out some way to quilt it that I don't have to mark, really.
Yeah, and I do the same. I use the purple marker mostly, or the chalk, for customer quilts, because I don't want to have a bad experience. So, and the thing is, you're, like you said, with the fabric, you don't know what chemicals was used for the sizing of the fabric, so you're combining possibly different chemicals in a process that you have no control over, just none. So,
and I think bottom line too is to, when I open something new and I throw away the package and then I go to use it and go, oh, where's my package? I try to keep the package now in a drawer so that I know what to use to remove some of those markings. And it doesn't matter what somebody else tells you, you got to read what's on that package, right? Because there are some things that get worse if you put them in the washing machine with soap or with other chemical reactions. So I would always, always, always follow what it says for instructions on those packages, for sure.
Absolutely.
When all else fails, read the instruction. That's a gray area.
They're suggestions, aren't they?
We like to test the waters a little bit sometimes. So that is all we have for you today. We want to thank you for tuning in and watching, and we hope you are excited to see our next episode coming out next week. And if you have any topics or things that you'd like us to share a little bit from each of us on one of our next episodes, please just tag the latest thread, #latest_thread in one of the Gamal groups, and we'll be sure to pay attention to that. Thanks for watching, and we hope everyone has a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.